Good everyone, and thank you for coming down. It's good to see everyone social distancing, whether you're online or here. We'll say that's what we planned. My name is Ryan, and tonight I'll be your lovely MC, and I'm also followed by the other crew members here we have at EWC New Zealand for the Entrepreneurship World Cup. We've got Marlon over there on the tech, and also Dave's also a judge here, so give a big wave. Before we go any further, I just want to thank our partners who made tonight possible. We have Creative HQ, the amazing space, and a bunch of awesome rewards for our contestants. We have the Adam Innovation Space with Stephen Cummings over here. We have Global Entrepreneurship Network in New Zealand and the Global Entrepreneurship Network across the world, and also the MISC Foundation too. Tonight we have 6 contestants that were selected from 100 overall entries through 2 layers of screening. So these 6 are definitely the best of the best of this year, and you're going to definitely see why very soon. I also want to show who will be judging tonight. So starting from over here, we have Dave Moskowitz. Stand up, give him a nice wave again. Thank you, Dave. He's the executive chair at EWC New Zealand. Then we've got Catherine Jones from Creative HQ. Thank you. Oh gosh, that's great. Laura Riedel from, I've got to use Callahan Innovation, but we're going to take that tonight.
Hiya.
Thanks, Laura. Veronica Stevenson from Humble Bee, and Stephen Cummings from the Adam. Thank you. Cheers. Before we go too much further, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine from Creative HQ to give us a little 5-minute talk about the space and all that Creative HQ does. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome everybody, and well done on making it here. As we've heard, the competition was stiff. Startups, acceleration, incubation is right at the heart of what we do here at Creative HQ. We've been doing it for the last 17 years, and we believe that entrepreneurs are everywhere. If I had $1 for every time someone came up to me and said Uber was their idea or Airbnb was their idea, I'd be a very rich lady. But the difference between those people and you are that, we're the ones who actually do it. And it takes a lot of guts and grit and hard work to take an idea that you've got and to turn it into a business that has potential to be invested in, that's scalable, that has potential to solve problems and in many cases transform lives and outcomes for people, not just in New Zealand, but around the world. And so you people are the people that hopes and dreams are built upon. And now is the time for innovators. They say that necessity is the mother of all invention. And we've also seen, I think, innovation is the 3rd most used term behind COVID and flatten the curve in New Zealand at the moment. So, you're the people who are actually doing it. I'm continually inspired every time I listen to startups pitch, and super excited to hear what we're going to be pitched to tonight. So good luck, everybody. Give it your best. You've got this.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And if you didn't check it out already, they have an amazing innovation debate that was hosted here a few weeks ago, which really showcases the space and the type of talent that comes through here as well. Whether you call those MPs talent, depending on your political position. Anyway, just to kind of detail how tonight's going to go down, we have 6 entrepreneurs who are going to come up and pitch to our lovely judges. I'm going to have 3 at a time, followed by a little break. We have some exciting news as well. And then the last 3, and they'll be coming to you virtually and also in person. Anyway, without further ado, let's move to team number 1. We've got RH Innovation Limited from Rahat Hassan, and who's going to be virtual. So we'll see how well this does with our tech setup. And also, we just do a round of applause for each of them just to showcase how well they've done. Whenever you're ready.
All right, I'll borrow my control over there. Welcome. I'm Shane Gibson. I'm the co-founder of AgileData.io, and we're all about making complex data simple in a really simple and magical way. So there's about 100 million companies around the world, and every one of those companies is collecting data about their customers, their employees, and their products. But the problem they have is they're collecting that data in a multitude of systems, or what we call data factories. On average, a company with up to 50 employees has about 7.8 systems that are include data. And what they need to do is they need to grab that data, combine it themselves to actually get a view of how their business is operating. So What we do is we help them with that problem, and we allow them to actually get access to their data and make the business decisions they need to make to actually run their business rather than becoming data experts. So what we do is we collect the data from all those systems that they have. Yep. We combine it into one place. We apply some rules on a rules engine that we've built that actually makes the data useful. And then we allow them to access that data and those outcomes at a click of a button. In terms of the market, there's different ways we can look at data on the thing. In terms of data integration, that's starting in 2027, the market will be about $2.25 billion. But there's a little bit of a dirty secret around data. And what that is actually why you can buy technology at the moment to actually do some data work, you've still got to hire some people. So typically there's at least between 1 and 5 people involved to actually configure a data platform or software to actually, and each one of those costs you around $100,000 to $150,000. So what we do is we automate that little bit. Starting at $100 a month, we deliver that as a service, both platform and service, to remove the need for you to have those people. And then from a business model, we have 3 ways that we look at it. So our first way we look at it is what's called monthly subscription, where you get both the platform and the services. We liken it to Netflix, where you get to use your data the way you want to use it, and you don't have to keep paying when you want something different. The second thing we're moving to is more of a network effect, where we can get people that are data magicians and actually enable them to use our platform to deliver to customers. So take their effort and get monetized through the
They're having technical issues.
Is what we call configure it yourself. So the idea that actually as a customer, it's so simple to use with our UI that you can actually build your own or configure your own data the way that you want to use it. Yep. So we've been on a bit of a journey. Last year we spent all our time on our MVP, so building the back end of our platform, onboarding our first customer to prove that what we built was as good as we thought it was, and it was. This year we're focusing around crafting that platform, so building in more automation for the problems we're finding with our customers. And we're delivering that as a service, so fixed monthly fee starting at $100 for both platform and our services. We're also developing the UI, which is really critical to what we're doing at the moment. So next year we can start as a service from a platform point of view, that network effect, bring other data magicians on to use our platform to deliver for customers across the world. And the goal being the year after that, we deliver the true software as a service platform. So customers can come on and their analysts can configure it for themselves. One of the things we know is data can deal or solve many problems, and we don't want to boil the ocean. So what we're doing is focusing on a small number of use cases, a small number of data problems right now to prove that we can deliver the way we think we can, right? And we'll just build up and harden each one of those as we do it. In terms of the team, my co-founder and I have worked together off and on in consulting gigs for many, many years. I come from more of a software product background, and I've also built a consulting company that I ran for 10 years. And my co-founder Nigel was the engineering side of us, so he's the person building out a lot of the platform. And we have some part-time people remotely working for us that are working on the development of the UI as we start to iterate out with that process. So, key thing we focus on is magic happens here. When we touch something and it's hard, we spend all our time automating it. So things that used to take us days, take us hours. Things that used to take us hours, takes us minutes. And the goal of that is to remove that complexity and deliver data in a simply magical way.
So, sorry, we get to ask questions?
Yeah, you wanted to ask questions.
What does your typical engagement look like with a customer? So, let's say I am, I don't know, Fonterra, and I'm trying to I've got all this data on milk from my various farms, and I want to figure out who's got the highest quality milk and how to encourage that. What do you guys do?
So 2 ways to answer that. So the first way is, at the moment, enterprise organizations have data teams, and they're not typically looking to make them redundant. So what we're finding is most customers that are interested in what we do are the people that don't have those teams. But when we get a customer and we want to understand their problem, we have basically a process we use remotely, which takes us an hour to understand their business. So we have a bunch of techniques we use to go through that process. So,
Keep going.
okay. So effectively, within an hour of a remote session, we understand the questions they need to answer as a business and how their business processes work. Once we collect the data, we can then use that to do the first iteration back to them of the metrics and the reports they want, and we just iterate around as we get more understanding of their business. We also have this concept of cookbooks. So once we've done an industry, 80% of the full business processes in an industry are the same for any customer in that industry, 20% unique. So we basically bake in those rules and those metrics. So click a button, we just stand them up for the next customer that's in that industry. So that's how we kind of scale our effort without having to hire thousands of people.
And how much revenue are you doing right now?
25,000 a year, so 4 customers. Yeah, 25 annual revenue. Yeah, so tiny.
What's your motivation? Why do you want to do this now?
I think our industry is broken. I did a project with a large government agency. They spent $60 million 4 years and didn't get a lot. All the contractors make money, all the vendors and the software make money, taxpayer lost out, so the employees. We make it hard. We shouldn't.
Well, just follow up then. I mean, you put your timeline up before, but what does success look like for you? Where do you want to be in 3 years' time?
So we see ourselves as a 100-employee company with about 1,000 magicians around the world and 100,000 users. So we're effectively a software as a service platform that's bootstrapped, profitable, and sustainable. We're not that keen on large VC funding and making massive losses just to try and buy the market.
You talked about your different avenues like your Netflix versus your Uber versus your IKEA.
Yeah.
What do you feel like the pros and cons are of each? And like, will you continue to offer all 3 of them, or is there going to be a sweet spot where you reach?
We don't know. So we know that each one of those is a viable go-to-market. We think each of them have the value to different types of customers. And so we're testing and trialing each one of them. We know the network effect is hard. Yeah, and we know that as a service is slightly hard for us to scale. And we know that self-service means we have to have that UI absolutely magical so our analysts can do what we do.
Do you currently use Netflix option for?
Yes.
Yeah. And with the current staffing that you've got, how sustainable is that?
So with 2 founders, it's
Yeah.
sustainable because we earn money by consulting on the side.
Right.
So 50% of our time is on the business, 50% of our time is revenue generating.
Yeah. How many more customers would you have coming on board?
So we can pretty much onboard one every 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of their rules or the systems they use.
And with that Netflix approach, you'd be able to have 1,000 customers and still be working 50% of the time on business?
Yeah, so there'll be a natural services hump, like curve where as we get more and more requests on an ongoing basis for those customers, we'll get to capacity and we'll need to bring on somebody else. What we don't know is we have some estimates on how much extra work after we've done the initial work, so how many changes will be on an ongoing basis. We don't actually have the data. So as we onboard each customer, we keep the data of how much to set them up, how much to do changes to them all the time.
How long are you doing this?
So the first customer we went on in September last year.
So how much time are you putting into your sales effort for new customers?
So we've only 2 of us. Probably 25% of my time at the moment is figuring out how we go to market at sales.
Okay. So how long is it taking you to land those sales?
So it's normally about 2 to 4 hours effort of conversation and 2 to 3 weeks before they make the decision. So it's a very difficult sales cycle, even though we believe it's such a compelling conversation. Yeah. So I did one the other day. They wanted to hire an engineer. They were a startup. They wanted to hire an engineer. They were offering 120,000. We said we'd do it for 1,000 a month, including the platform. They decided to hire a person because they've been funded and they wanted to build a team. So that's what we find is the people that just want the answer and these people that build a team. So we're no longer really talking to those second customers at the moment until we figure out the change of message.
Who do you consider your main competitors?
Probably a startup we don't know about. So there's lots of legacy vendors and there's lots of vendors in this space, but if somebody could actually do what we call the magic sorting hat, that's probably the main competitor that we worry about.
Cool, thank you. And my apologies again for the technical issues. We're going to move back into the schedule that we traditionally had with Rahat, who's going to be our first virtual speaker. So let's see if we can get this up this time. Good to see you. Say hi.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good. Awesome. We can hear you. Thanks.
Hold on, just give us a sec. Share screen. Hold on. Where's the share screen?
Have you enabled share screen, Mo?
Yep. Right.
Cool.
Cool. Can you guys hear us all right?
It's okay?
Just good.
Cool. Okay. Right. Shall I start?
Yeah, when you're
Off you
ready.
go.
Okay, cool. So, right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rahat, and I have here with me Bismarck, Daniel, and Isaac. So, we are RH Innovation, an R&D company based here in Hamilton. So, now the problem we are trying to solve is that this plant here cannot tell you when it needs water, right? And because of that, farmers are either guessing the timing of irrigation or using some type of soil moisture sensors. Now, here are some moisture sensors that are currently being used by farmers, right? But you see, these sensors are only calibrated to one soil type, which means when farmers use them for their soil, they have to calibrate the reading in their head. Now, it's a lot of work for the farmers, right? And because of that, it often leads to inaccurate decision making, which can cause nitrate leaching, poor crop quality, and increased irrigation cost. So our solution, in one sentence, we give your plants a voice, right? So we do this through our innovative AI solution that can calibrate moisture sensors in real time and tell farmers when to turn the tap on, and more importantly, when to turn it off. And also our AI solution, it works with our patented moisture sensor that are far more accurate than your average soil moisture sensors in the market. So our value proposition, so with our solution, you never have to calibrate your moisture sensor again. Now, this means that you'll be saving money on irrigation costs, growing better crops, and reduce nitrate leaching. Now, what we have found is that there are hundreds of moisture sensors in the market, but there is none that can self-calibrate in real time. So what our market opportunity looks like, so our main focus is the dairy and the horticulture industries. Now we are currently focusing on hydroponics in the horticulture sector because it is a closed environment where we can properly stress test our solution. But in saying that, we have our sights set on the dairy industry. So we went and we spoke to some big players in the market, right? And found that all these companies here on your slide, they have shown interest in our solution. Here are some of the companies who have already agreed to trial our solution. And currently, we are trialing with 2 companies based in Taronga, Berryco and Plantwise, and we have another 7 lined up. Now, we have 3 types of revenue. One is the R&D funding, because we're an R&D company, a one-off hardware cost for the sensor, and our main source of revenue, which is the monthly subscription cost per unit. And now, based on that business model, we plan to make a profit of around $2.5 million in year 2 and around $4.5 million in year 3. So our team, so there are 6 of us in the team, and we are a team of engineers and business innovators. In the last, so we've been working together for like now 2 years, and we have achieved a lot together. So we got accepted into Kokiri Accelerator Program. We got some funding from Ministry of Primary Industries and Microsoft. We've also filed a provisional patent for 2 moisture sensors, and we are now partially developed our AI solution, which auto calibrates our moisture sensors. And yeah, I guess that is all from me, and thank you for this opportunity.
Cool, thank you very much.
Any questions, I guess?
So any questions? Sorry, I can't hear you guys.
What's the secret sauce that enables you to do your self-calibration where the other competitors can't? And why is that?
Okay, so the moisture sensors, so what we have, when we first developed our moisture sensors, and we were streaming data, we recognized that the moisture sensor itself, it behaves a bit differently when it reaches saturation level or fill capacity or the refill point. Now, these are the levels that farmers look at and make a decision on whether he should irrigate his farm or not. And so what we are using is we are using AI algorithm to look at certain patterns in the data and basically flag it to the farmer saying that, look, the soil is overflowing with water, so you should now stop irrigating. So this is something that others haven't done to date. What people have been doing is they have been looking at individual reading and then basically calibrating manually for each soil type. So we basically, in one sentence, we are automating the calibration process. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I have a question around, so will you become a manufacturing company? Will you manufacture the sensors yourself? Will you license the technology that you have? You clearly showed us that you make money by subscription. So tell us a little bit about the manufacturing process and what you have lined up there.
Okay, yeah, we definitely want to manufacture because by licensing, we felt like we have to give away quite a lot of profit to the others, because I think if you license to someone, you might get around 7% of the profit margin. So yeah, definitely we want to manufacture. So we have got a manufacturing plant set up in Bangladesh, and you know, because I'm from there, so I've got good connections over there as well. So that's how it's going to work out for us. So we will basically ship it to one of the countries. So initially we'll start with New Zealand, but then the next would be Japan and the Middle East. So yeah, we'll basically manufacture it in Bangladesh and then ship it to the customers directly.
And does anyone in your team have a supply chain management or manufacturing background or skills?
Yes, so currently we are not at that stage yet, but you know, when we get to that stage when we are manufacturing, we will bring someone on board. Definitely, we do realize that, you know, we do not have the necessary skills for that kind of thing, like supply chain management. But yeah.
Can I ask, how did you arrive at your pricing model?
Oh, pricing models is basically based on what the customers told us, the people we are trialing with. So as I've mentioned, that we are already trialing with 2 companies, Perico and Plantwise. And what they're doing is basically they are growing, you know, berries in pots kind of thing. They're like more like a horticulture kind of industry in that space. So according to them, you know, one-off cost for the hardware and then $120 for the subscription would work quite nicely. So that came from them. But saying that we are still exploring the market, we have other 7 customers to trial with for other certain companies. So that business model is subject to change.
Can I ask how, if you've the sensor is in the ground,
Yes.
what happens to it after the crop is ready to be harvested? Does it get damaged, or do you have to go into the land and literally pull out all of the sensors before you can harvest the crop?
Sorry, can you say that again?
To harvest, I'm assuming that you need multiple sensors across a piece of land because land's not totally flat. When you want to harvest the crop, do you have to go and pull all of the sensors out individually?
Yes. So that would be for the dairy market, but for the horticulture market, they're growing things in pots. So I can basically go back to the slides here. So they're basically growing them in pots, so they don't need to pull it out, so it just stays in there for whatever time. But for the dairy market, obviously they have to go and pull it out because it's a stationary sensor. And then we also did some customer validation around that. And dairy farmers say, that a stationary sensor will work more, it will be more suitable for him rather than a portable one. So yeah, that's the route we just took.
Cool, thank you. Can we just give one quick round of applause?
Thanks.
In the interest of time, we're going to keep the next ones a little bit stricter to the schedule. But third, before we go to a quick break, I just want to invite Harrison from ProFlow to speak on, ProFlow, sorry.
It's all good. Thanks. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. We're just trying to get you up. 1 second. There you go. You're good.
Well, good. Well, thanks for having me. I'll try to keep it nice and short and sharp and give you guys some time back. I will just quickly share my screen and make sure you can see these slides. So just give me a second. Great. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. All right. I'll jump into it. So make sure my clicker's working. Okay, great. So my name's Harrison. I'm the founder and CEO of ProFlow. And ProFlow, we help managers to unblock and empower their team. So our mission is to empower every team across the world to fulfill its potential. Now, the problem that we're working on, this is a personal problem of mine that I face at Airbnb. And I truly believe workplace blockers are the single biggest threat to a team's productivity. So these are sort of what I refer to as unstructured, undocumented problems, things that pop up in the everyday course of work, which stop you getting your work done, slow you down, or prevent you from achieving your goals. The reason why this is such an under-recognized but severe pain point is that there's no consistent or structured way to raise them. Managers really lack visibility of what's slowing their team down, and there's a real lack of transparency and responsibility over next steps to resolve them. So at the moment, how are people solving this? Well, the status quo is communication tools like Slack and Gmail. They're actually really inefficient when it comes to solving these unstructured, undocumented problems. Things fall through the cracks, people forget to look at them, and the feedback loop is really long. Other tools like project management apps, things like Asana, they're clunky. They're not designed for, you don't want to start a project when you want to raise a blocker to your manager. So the output is long feedback loops. People spend more time blocked, and there's a loss in productivity and morale. So what's our solution? We provide a dedicated platform for teams to raise, acknowledge, and resolve blockers. So firstly, raising an issue, we provide a really simple template that allows people to raise things to their manager. And the reason we provide a template is we do some of the heavy lifting. So we ask key questions like, why is resolving this important? What does the ideal output look like? And what are some next steps? And people can raise issues within the platform, but also in their current workflow. From Slack or say in Google Docs from say a one-on-one update or a team meeting, they can quickly and easily raise it in ProFlow. We make it really easy to collaborate and resolve on this. So it provides a single source of truth as well as notifications to keep things moving through and ultimately get it resolved. And finally, we provide a dashboard so managers can keep track of everything that's slowing their team down or stopping them from achieving their objectives. So that's just where we're starting. We're really helping teams and helping managers to basically create super teams that perform at a really high level. The next step is helping companies. So as more teams use ProFlow across the company, the more data we collect, we actually want to bubble this up. So from a bird's eye view, VPs, execs, CEOs can see, okay, well, these are the common threads. These are the things that's slowing my organization down. These are the types of things that are stopping them from getting work done. And then the second piece is what we hope will be a network effect. As more and more companies use ProFlow, we see the typical blockers that come up over different life cycles and stages of companies. We want to use predictive modeling to help them anticipate and address blockers before they come up. So our value, what we're doing, we're trying to create really high performance work environments. We shorten the feedback loop so people can resolve these blockers and get back to work. And create sort of better functioning and more engaged teams. Why now? So there's a paradigm shift to a more agile-based workforce, but more significantly, we're moving to more and more distributed workforces and remote teams. So when everyone's in the office, a lot easier to resolve these types of things. So as more and more people are not together, the need for transparency and accountability, and getting things resolved becomes all the more important. Marketplace, so we looked at the workflow management and team collaboration market. Long story short, it's big, it's growing fast. We think it's sizable enough to create a venture scale business in. Our business model is bottoms up. We're freemium SaaS, so charge $10 per seat per month. This is at a level where managers can expense it for their team on a credit card, similar to say a Notion or a Trello or a Slack type cost. Our go-to-market, we're targeting managers in companies of 150 plus people, typically where bureaucracy starts to creep in. And we think a lot about product-led growth. So a lot of the use cases within ProFlow involve multiple teams. So there is some sort of natural spread across the organization once the team starts using it. The team is, so we've got myself, an engineer, a product design, two engineers, a product designer, and a marketing and ops lead. My background, previously head of strategy and biz ops at Airbnb, and also founded and sold my first startup. We have a bunch of really talented advisors who are also investors that used to work with me at Tilt. One was my boss, the other one was a product manager at Airbnb. Our progress so far, we've got 1,000 people currently using our beta. We just launched our product recently. We raised a $100,000 friends and family round, and earlier this year was accepted into the Station F Founders Program in Paris. And lastly, at the moment, we've just kicked off conversations to raise a pre-seed round of 500K via a safe note to provide 18 months runway. That's primarily been spent on engineering and design. We just want to design and build really fast and get to the point where we've got a significant number of users and at a revenue where we could raise a competitive A round. So that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
How do you actually sell it, Harrison? What's the sales process?
Yeah, so great question. We're bottoms up, so we're not trying to sell top down into companies or organizations yet. So the way we do this, we target individual managers, and even more specifically, we target first time and recently promoted managers. I categorize, to paint your picture, this might be a 28-year-old ops lead from Uber. She's just been promoted. All of a sudden, she's managing 8 people and maybe has never managed in her life. And so these people are really sort of drowning. So we target these managers because we think they have the most pain. And the way we do that, classics of B2B SaaS, we rely on channels like content marketing. To steal a well-known catchphrase, we've gone hard and gone early with content marketing. And I'm also a big believer in community. I did a lot of community work with Tilt and at Airbnb. So, going to places where, managers, whether they're early managers or what I refer to as growth mindset managers, hang out. And then thirdly, like I said, we rely on product-led growth. So once we're in an organization, we put a lot of focus on how do we make it easy for people to invite people and spread the product organically.
Thanks.
Can I ask, how do you protect your intellectual property? What's to stop someone else just taking what you do and adding it to an existing service?
Yeah, look, great question. So I would be the first one to say I think there's very little that you can do in 2020 that's ultimately protectable. You've got a very short window where you have to make significant process and build yourself some sort of moat. So I'm cognizant of that fact. So I think that there's a lot of talented folks out there, whether it's designers or engineers. So I would say what we're doing initially is we are so almost obsessive around this problem to a level that others aren't, where we spend so much time day in, day out speaking to people, understanding the problem down to the most minute detail. And our plan is one to, we're not focused on, 5 or 6 other things like at some companies. We're going really laser focused on blockers and helping free people up and get them back to work. So we need to use this time to make as much progress as we can. And that's just going to get us part way. That's going to build us a tool that will help teams. Where our moat can come in and what I think can actually be really protectable is the data play here. So as we collect more and more data, we can paint a really clear picture to companies of, hey, over the last 12 months, 18, 24 months, these are the types of things that's slowing your people down. And these are the types of things that are popping up. So I guess the more they use ProFlow, the more data and the more useful those analytics get. And the last thing I'll quickly say is the long-term vision is not just helping companies learn from their past performance, but as the ecosystem grows and other companies use ProFlow, we can start to show them, hey, we've seen companies like you, and in 12 months' time, these are the types of blockers you're going to run into. So it's kind of this aggregate learning piece. But yeah.
Cool, thanks, Harrison. We're just going to take a short break. Can you do 15 minutes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. We're just going to take a short break, and we're going to invite Dave Moskovitz up here from the Global Entrepreneurship Network New Zealand to talk about, well, he can tell us actually. I don't want to spoil it. So thank you, and we'll be back to it for everyone who's watching at 6:15.
All right. Hopefully, I'll be slightly quicker. Marwan, you've got some manifesto slides. Excellent. So let's start on the second one. Awesome. Hey, thanks very much for coming tonight. I'm Dave. You might be aware that earlier today we launched a Global Entrepreneurship Network New Zealand Entrepreneurship Manifesto. And this was the result of collaboration from people right across the ecosystem here in New Zealand. We put together this organization which started with an unconference in February, which many of the people in the room here attended. And the collaboration that resulted from that resulted in this manifesto, which is basically a statement of the direction that we want to go in as the entrepreneurship community in New Zealand. We're doing this because we believe entrepreneurs are critical to the future economy, and especially in the pandemic era. We want to have much more collaborative relationships with each other, and especially with government. So why are we doing this right now? Well, there's an election on, and we feel that this is a time when politicians are most right to listen to people within their community and what their needs are. And we're hoping that these messages will resonate across the political spectrum, and especially with the incoming government. Who are we doing this for? Well, we're doing this for entrepreneurs. Now, we have an interesting definition of entrepreneur, and we had really long discussions about this. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur, and who is an entrepreneur? We define entrepreneurs as people who create new companies that use innovative processes, technologies, and business models, right? So entrepreneurs are people that are busy innovating. And we wanted to keep this definition as broad as possible. We didn't want to limit ourselves to people doing tech startups. And we didn't want to include everyone, including like people who are setting up a dry cleaner franchise. So in order to be an entrepreneur, by our definition, you really need to be using innovative processes, technologies, and business models. And as I just said before, the production of this manifesto was a real community effort. And I'll give you a glimpse into who those were, who the people were later on. But we brought together the community of entrepreneurs and entrepreneur support organizations organically in a way that's never been done before. And the manifesto that you see is the result of a really mammoth collaborative effort over a couple of months. And it was a really great example of how collectives can interact when they're at their best. We're really proud of this effort, and we think it bodes really well for future endeavors. So, who is the Global Entrepreneurship Network? Well, GEN operates a platform of programs in 170 countries, and the big idea is to make it easier for anyone, anywhere to start a business. It was founded in 2019 in New Zealand and exists to connect ecosystem enablers with the talent and resources they need to thrive nationally as well as globally. As well, as building long-lasting partnerships with ecosystem enablers, entrepreneurs, government, service providers, investors, and academia. So as you can see, there were a number of themes that came through in building this manifesto, and you'll see them on the left here. The policy making and building entrepreneur-government relationships, building entrepreneur support networks, founder education, capability building, venture funding, and immigration. So I'll just talk briefly about each one of these. Next slide, one, please. So starting off with policy making, we're really seeking a collaborative relationship between entrepreneurs and government. The government spends quite a lot of money on innovation, but the lion's share goes to big science, CRIs, universities, and scale-ups that have already been de-risked. Very little is left over for entrepreneurs at the coalface who are really pushing the boundaries of innovation. We think that building this relationship needs to start with a national vision and roadmap for where we want to be as an entrepreneurial country. We've been compared to, well, we could be the next Israel, we could be the next Singapore, we could be the next Silicon Valley, but we're really none of those places. And I don't think we really want to be. We are, and we want to be New Zealand, and we want to be the next New Zealand, and a better New Zealand than what we are now. And to do that, we need to develop a Kiwi vision and work out how to get there. That's lacking, and we think that entrepreneurs can really contribute to that conversation. Much of the government policy making in this area happens in a way that can be much more collaborative and transparent. And in the same way that startup success depends on deeply knowing your customer, we feel that we could have a much closer relationship where we co-design policy solutions rather than having them given to us. Government could be much more entrepreneurial itself, and we stand by ready to help. The old ways of doing things won't cut it in the future, and we've seen glimmers of hope in the way that some government agencies have reacted to the pandemic. We'd like to see government engage in more active and sustainable continuous innovation. So the second initiative is entrepreneur support and networks. Now, Auckland and Wellington are really well catered for entrepreneur support networks, but out in the regions, support for entrepreneurs is really sparse. And even in the main centers, we could do a much better job of communicating and supporting each other. As my hero, Suze Reynolds, likes to say, we're good at looking after ourselves, but not particularly good at looking after each other. The pandemic has taught us that we're only as safe as those people around us, and that each of us could take much more of an ecosystem view. Now, that doesn't mean we should stop competing, far from it. Competition is good, but it does mean that we can be better at collaborating. Now, measuring the impact that we have in a really honest way that is data-driven, dispensing the success theater, is going to be critical to improving our practice as entrepreneur support organizations. Next one. Founder education and capability building. If we want more new businesses, we need more people to think like entrepreneurs. And in order to do that, education is the key. Currently, there's little alignment between the entrepreneurial community and educational institutions and training programs. There's a lot of value to unlock here, especially during the revolution that education is currently experiencing as they move into more online and credentialized knowledge in much smaller chunks. Next up is venture funding. Getting funding for your venture is really, really hard. And I know this as an investor because I come across people all the time who are really struggling to get funding. We believe that rather than extensively propping up existing industries that will never come back post-pandemic, significantly increasing government funding into very early stage companies will provide much better dividends. Now, we're not saying the government should just cut all funding from everything else and put it into entrepreneurship, far from it. But so little goes into that really early stage right now that doubling it or tripling it will make very little real difference to the overall government spend on innovation. We'd also like to see much greater incentives for academia to produce research that can actually be commercialized. To date, the results from the academic commercialization sector have been less than stellar, and we think that they could do much better with the right incentives and support, especially from experienced entrepreneurs. And finally, immigration. Now, immigrants have a huge role to play, and just look around the room here, and you will see a significant number of people that are immigrants. Look, we play a really important role in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, We're the people who took the risk to leave our own countries and go somewhere else, which is quite a big thing. And when you look around the entrepreneurial ecosystem in New Zealand, you'll see that it's really well populated by immigrants. We think that the government could actually, by reviewing its visa policies, encourage much more high quality, high value immigration from immigrants. And at the same time, we see refugees and migrants who face significant prejudice as employees in New Zealand, as a major untapped source of entrepreneurial talent that could reap huge benefits. So, how can you help? You can join us, you can join our mailing list, you can join our ecosystem enablers, you can join our conversation. This manifesto is a call to collaboration. And especially spread this message within your own organization and amongst your stakeholders, members, and customers. Finally, we're strong. Sorry, keep going one more. We're strong, we're diverse, we're capable, and we're growing. These organizations have all contributed to our kaupapa as well as our ongoing mahi. And we'd like to see you and your organizations on this list too. So thank you very much.
Thanks for that, Dave. We just have a video that Marlon's just going to get up now. And you also kept the time, Dave. I think you're even a few minutes early. Just.
Optimized for computer sound down the bottom. I've made this mistake before.
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. I know no one's left this building, but let's all pretend we had a break in that little period. Into the second half, we have Team 4, Tectonis, I think it is, with Kian Lee. Kian, are you there?
Yep.
Awesome. You spotlight the wrong person.
Am I good to go?
Sorry, one moment.
Yep.
Just say something.
So just let me know if the screen is visible.
You're good. Start whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll try to make it very short as well. Hello everyone, this is Kane from Tectonis. And Tectonis is an Auckland-based startup providing innovative structural dampers for buildings and structures to recenter during earthquakes and aftershocks. So obviously the problem that we are addressing is about the impact of the earthquakes. From the 2011 Japanese and the Christchurch earthquakes, we, as a structural engineering background, we knew that the underlying problem to all these damages were because that the structures were vulnerable to damages. So that's why we came up with solutions that recentered the buildings instead of letting the buildings collapse or be damaged for long business disruptions. So if you look at our first product, if it's gonna go, my apologies. Are you seeing a video by any chance?
No video.
No video. Okay. I've lost my control. I've lost my control.
Right, so not to lose the time, if you can just continue with the presentation.
Yeah, sure. So the principle is very, very simple, actually. So the connectors, these connectors are attached to the buildings, like the foundations and the columns of the buildings and the structures. And what it does is it actually makes the building come back to its original position during earthquakes and aftershocks. These connectors do two things, which is very easy to remember, which are energy damping and self-centering. So by attaching these connectors in the buildings, you'll be able to get the buildings that recenter to the original position during earthquakes and aftershocks. So these technologies are patented, and we are being supported by the government with the NBI funding to pursue the R&D. And the interesting thing about these technology is because this is the only recentering technology combined with the damping in the market, it's a very, very predictable system. So it means that if you attach IoT sensor, elastomer sensor type, if you measure the distance of how much it moves, you can actually get the real-time movement of the building. So it is very effective for the structural health monitoring as well. And we have just recently launched our second product, which is to do with the storage tank industry. This one is quite interesting because we are producing this in a mass producible type. So we recently signed a supply agreement with the largest tank manufacturer in New Zealand as well. So it's going to give us a recurring sort of revenue. So we have, with these products, completed 5 projects in total, including our landmark project in Nelson, which is the Nelson Airport. And we have another landmark building that we have just seen recently being constructed in Vancouver. So we are preparing for the internationalization as well. So our team has a very, very strong engineering background because these sort of technologies, you need to convince the structural engineers to use the technology. Our founding team includes 2 academics, one being the head professor at the University of Auckland, and the other being the lecturer at AUT. I guess so with these in mind, our next sort of step is to actually go for the Series A investment round. And we are looking to internationalize into North America and Japan. And the interesting thing is New Zealand is known as a very, very strong creators of the seismic technologies, from the base isolation, which is protecting the Te Papa and the Parliament building. We are sort of carrying on that legacy as another very strong seismic technology provider in the world, which is very much needed in order to make the cities resilient, literally resilient. So we do think that we are driving towards the direction, and we would like to ask for your support in us representing New Zealand in the global settings. Thank you very much. And I'll just try to work out what's going on with the computer. But any questions, please?
How many customers do you have?
We have completed 5 projects in total right now. And that includes Nelson Airport. There is actually a healthcare building in Wellington, Lower Hutt as well, that we have completed last year. So that's another one. And 2 buildings in Christchurch. These are the completed projects, and we have 20 other projects that we are in discussion right now.
Have you done a case study on like put this on an earthquake simulation building?
Yes, we have. Because it's a very conservative product, these sort of technological due diligence is very, very important. And during our initial project with the Nelson Airport, we had to undergo all these technical due diligences at the University of Auckland, where we've used technology in 8-meter long columns and different component testings to satisfy the requirements of the engineers. I think you can see the screens now. I'm so sorry about that.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about your competition as well in this space?
Sure. So our competitors, there are other seismic technologies that are out there in the world. Some of them do provide some sort of resilience in terms of recentering, but none of them provides damping and recentering together. And the big thing about the seismic technology is that these conventional technologies are being used as one-off uses. And that's why during the Christchurch earthquakes and the Japanese earthquakes, the damages that we have seen were hefty because the structures were collapsing and they were not inhabitable. So in terms of the competitors, there are some other technologies, including the base isolation, which is protecting the Te Papa building, these diagonal braces, which is quite popular in the today's buildings. However, these technologies would cost sometimes up to 5 times the installation cost to repair after the earthquake. And during the time, the buildings are going to be uninhabitable. So we do think that our technology is technically the most advanced.
Sorry, we just.
I just don't know anything about team. Not two academics, but hang on.
Sorry, I just really want to understand here because I've done work with another startup in this space.
Sure.
And in terms of the technology, so how will we know, there's been an earthquake, the building's fitted with these sensors, how will we know that the building has actually recentered and that it is safe to go back into the building? Will you still need an engineer to come in and do that assessment?
Sure thing. So engineers would need to tick off, obviously, and we would be providing a very, very essential component of that assessment. Just to let you know, this product, the IoT sensors, are actually under development right now. So these sensors have not been commercialized just yet, but these are something that we are working on right now. So in terms of the normal connectors themselves, the normal behavior is that it would recenter in all of the situations. And as we sort of get the specification from the engineers, if we know that the earthquake has been within the specification of the engineers, we provide 100% guarantee that the connectors have been recentered. And because it's a recentering technology, we provide 100% testing records of all of the dampers that we provide. So this is only possible because our technology is a recentering technology. The other technologies, of course, when you test them, obviously they're going to be broken. So you can't provide 100% test records that are actually being used in your buildings.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that the slides didn't work.
Cool. Moving on to our second to last team, we've got.
Okay, thank you.
Miora over in London who's calling in. Are you still there, Ingrid?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Ryan?
Yeah, you're good. We can't see you at the moment. I don't know if that's on purpose.
Can you see me now? Am I screen sharing?
Yeah, you're good. Perfect.
Excellent. So I'll just crack on.
Yep, you're ready.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. So kia ora, my name is Reza, and together with Nicole, we are team Miora. At Miora, we believe AI-empowered healthcare won't just save lives, but it has the power to truly democratize well-being and self-care like never before. Sadly, one person dies every 4 seconds from a preventable infectious disease. And as a doctor, I've witnessed firsthand the devastating impacts of this statistic on families and communities. But I think in this day and age, in the new normal, each of us here right now probably knows someone who's been personally affected by this crisis. However, there are countless more around the world who are suffering in silence, out of sight and out of mind. Which is why we came together as a data scientist and a doctor to co-found Miora. And beyond having credentials to work in this solution space, we share a deep passion to utilize our shared opportunities to collectively shift that dial. Miora is a data and AI-driven real-time health analytics platform. Miora provides insights on disease trends, health risks, and recommended actions for mitigation. We have 2 key arms. Firstly, a B2C solution that delivers actionable health information in a simple, easy to understand app. And secondly, a B2B SaaS solution, empowering healthcare organizations to achieve that goal of precision population health. But what's really interesting about our unique value proposition is that it includes a cross-subsidized business model, with enterprise revenue subsidizing freemium access for under-resourced parts of the world. And with this approach, we're hoping that Miora will become a truly collaborative and inclusive social impact platform. From our user testing, we've found that simplicity in design and the ease of access to actionable health info is what our customers are craving. And we're greatly inspired by local heroes like Toby Morris and Susie Wiles, who focus on health literacy because it's just so important. But with proceeds from paying B2C and B2B customers in developed countries utilized to cover the operations in developing nations, our pricing model is designed to find that sweet spot where social impact actually meets a sustainable business imperative. So far, we've received some really warm feedback from over 8 large organizations all around the world, including MSF, Doctors Without Borders, who are excited to partner with us on developing our MVP in Central and West Africa. We're hoping to leverage our amazing connections and relationships around the world to advance our mission and scale Miora into APAC in this coming year, starting with New Zealand. And then our roadmap spearheads us onto a world stage by late 2021. So far, for a pre-launch stage project, I think we've already achieved some exciting milestones, and we're really grateful for accolades and support from the Rockefeller Foundation, who've granted us a social impact grant, Acumen, Microsoft, and Aware Group. But we've also published our work in a peer-reviewed scientific journal and presented at international conferences because we truly believe that collaboration is the bedrock for social impact. We are incredibly grateful for this opportunity at EWC and hope to take Miora to a global stage. We think that your support will really help us get there a lot faster and hopefully impact the lives of millions. We also have Nicole, my co-founder, online to help answer some of your questions. Thank you so much for listening.
Tell us what the product actually does. I mean, give us a use case.
Yeah, sure. So our core premise, technologically speaking, is predictive analytics. So using social media sentiment analysis alongside traditional data analytics techniques to predict infectious disease ahead of the curve. And with that information, helping healthcare organizations plan, procure, and deploy interventions.
Right. Okay, but I'm sick. If I'm sick, would I use your app?
Yeah, so from a B2C perspective, we're hoping to just focus on health advice. So how to keep yourself well, how to keep yourself safe, and get some of that predictive analytics in terms of how to lock down ahead of time.
How far along are your products, both the B2B and B2C? Like, is anything in the market? How close to it are you?
So we are pre-launch with our concept. We're actually working on prototypes, and we've entered a pre-accelerator with Christchurch Health Tech Supernode to work over the next 6 weeks to test with partners here in New Zealand.
So how do I access your product? Is it an app? Is it a website? How do I get it?
So we're currently pre-launch at the moment. The app would be available on smart devices, and for the enterprise solution, we'd be working with organizations directly, starting off with MSF and Christchurch NZ here in New Zealand.
What's the sort of go-to-market strategy in the long run for the B2C and B2B both? Like they're sort of require mass adoption, right? So that's hard to achieve. So how are you going to do that?
Cool. I'll just hand over to Nicole, who's online, who's our marketing expert.
Yep. So at the moment, what we're doing is growing our initial target audience space in New Zealand with, for the B2C part, we'll be selling to health conscious consumers. So what we have estimated is that the total addressable market is around 3.8 million, of which 52% of that is early adopters group. And then we'll be doing communications across social media, word of mouth, and to create kind of loyalty and generate that retention with our networks, and also leverage the network effects that we are offering with the family solution that is part of our subscription service. With the B2B channel, we are formulating strategies to approach organizations that we are currently in talks with and also future partners to help target our approach to appeal to the decision makers and the end users in those organizations. And with partners like MSF and potentially the WHO, we'll be looking to roll out those strategies to achieve a bigger scalability across the world. So we do have these things in play, and we understand the challenges that are associated with it, but our team is equipped with the knowledge and the connections, as well as the advisory and mentoring network to help us get to that stage.
Where are you pricing it?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Where is your price point?
So at the moment, we have based our price point on initial customer surveys and also in-depth interviews with our focus groups as well as our stakeholders. And for the B2C solution, I think if you flip back to the slide, Reza, if you still have it up, we have priced it at $5 a month per user. And that's based on also analysis of similar health SaaS products that are in the App Store. For our B2B solution, we're looking at $5 per month price point, and that is also based on conversations with our partners as well. So just remember, this is a pre-launch product. We are still in the phase of leveraging our connections and networks and our customers to do further validation on these aspects, but we are making strides in that regard.
Thank you, both of you, for that. And that was fantastic. We got a big round of applause. Last but not least, we invite Alistair from Third Web to give the final pitch for tonight. Alistair, you there? Oh.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm a Wellington local, but I'm out of town at the moment, so I've put my Wellington background so I can feel like I'm there with you guys. So I'll just share my screen here, make sure that's working okay. Sorry, 1 second. Of course, it's asking me for permission, which it never does. It's saying Zoom will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it is quit.
Share it, don't record it.
Yeah. Share. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that. Present. Cool. So thank you for having me. I am Alistair McLean. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Third Web. We're on a mission to build a future where high-quality journalism can thrive on the internet. We started Third Web out of the back of a long-time passion from all 4 co-founders for the internet and the sort of revolution that it's enabled in terms of sharing and accessing information. Over the last decade, Facebook and Google have dominated the ad market to the point that ads are no longer a viable business model for a lot of businesses, but specifically publishers of news. Many publishers have dealt with this by putting up paywalls. There's a big problem though, and that's that it works very well for a few large publishers, but not so well for the majority of others. It also locks people out. We've probably all, had experience with that, particularly with international sites, and it pushes free news publishers to produce clickbait and pick a side, dividing society. And we've seen that, look at CNN, Fox News in the US. We really, really believe passionately that high quality, diverse and accessible journalism is fundamental to a society that's informed and engaged, and we need a new model. So we started about 5 months ago. We've been on a huge journey full of a huge amount of research. We launched our first product 3 weeks ago. And at the heart of what Third Web is one subscription for all the online news you consume. So I will just jump out of my slideshow and give you a 10-second demo. So we've got a Chrome extension, well, a browser extension primarily on Chrome, that works by giving our readers have access to a range of publishers through that, and they can see this dashboard. And so what basically it's one subscription, and it enables all of our users we automatically track the amount of engaged time that our users spend on all of the free news that they currently consume. And then based on that engaged time each month, their subscription is split out proportionally to the publishers that are in our network. And that's growing all the time. So just jumping back here. This, for consumers, enables them to join a movement that fundamentally supports high quality journalism. We give them insights into how they consume news. So that's where they're consuming news from and in what proportions, both how many articles they read and how much engaged time they're spending. And it gives them a way to directly pay for all the news they read with one seamless, convenient subscription. On the publisher side, we provide significant additional revenue, which is something that is the main driver for most publishers. We're also the only startup in the world, or a company of any kind in the world, in this space that has a solution that keeps eyeballs on publishers' sites. So we're not aggregating content on our own platform, which doesn't work well for publishers. And we upsell our most engaged users to direct subscribers for the publishers. Just very briefly touching on this, we have a 3-product plan. So we've launched the first one. The second one, $20 a month. We're providing that insights dashboard you saw, which we're going to extend rapidly over time to provide things like bias reports on publishers and recommendations. But also we'll be introducing limited access to paywalled articles from a range of publishers. And then the extended paywall access product brings in unlimited access on a number of those partner publishers, and then higher price point publishers limited access. So the numbers, briefly, we've raised 120K in a friends and family round, launched 3 weeks ago. We have 25 paying subs, which is 290 MRR. We've been keeping things fairly low key, just experimenting with the early stages. We aim to hit 10,000 subs before the end of the year, which will equate to over $1 million run rate. And following that milestone, we plan to raise a seed round. Another number that we're looking at pretty closely is how much total engaged time our users are spending reading news in our network with the extension. And so that went from 11.5 hours last week to 26 hours this week. And there was some good growth the week there before, as you can see. The market is growing. This report came out recently by Reuters. Shows that since 2014, the global market for people that have paid for news of any kind has grown, but more importantly, the US market, which is where we're looking, has doubled since 2014. How Third Web reaches 100 million ARR, which is what we're looking at, which gets us to that $1 billion valuation range. We're focusing on the US market, as I said, for a whole range of reasons. They are attractive, including that they're significantly more mature than New Zealand. Paywalls aren't such a problem here. Also, divisive media is not such a problem here. Don't want to spend too long on here, but basically, if we get 0.1% of the people in the US that are currently paying for news, that is enough subscribers with this model to get to that size. Once again, for time, I won't go into this, but we've got an amazing team, 4 co-founders and another 5 that are supporting us. Our leadership team has numerous successful exits behind them, including 2 New Zealand acquisitions and multiple US exits that total over $1 billion New Zealand dollars, the biggest being an IPO on the NASDAQ. And we have deep technical expertise as a core part of our team, which is really important because other players rely on development outside, and we do everything. We can develop innovative software in-house. Thank you very much.
Alistair, I'm going to ask you if you know Alex, because I've seen this exact business a couple of years ago. So I just wonder, and it's a Wellington-based founder for the previous business as well. So just wondering.
Yes, I do know Alex. There are a couple of core differences. So basically, without, I don't want to do a long answer, but basically what they're doing is enabling publishers to accept direct donations. So they provide a little donation box that publishers can add to their site and then process. They're like a donation payment processor. We want to build a global network that is a fundamentally new business model that provides a significant additional revenue source for publishers. And it's all focused around this tracking of readership and splitting subscriptions out based on a number of factors around how much engaged time our users are spending on the articles that they're reading from.
So is it kind of like Spotify? that? Someone was
Uh,
saying,
it-
sounds like Spotify. What would your response to that be?
My response would be yes and no. There's a number of key differences in the news market and the news industry and the music industry that present different challenges. So one subscription for all news, obviously that is a lot like Spotify. The main difference would be that the news market is a lot more, there's a lot more players, and it's got a local element that music doesn't have. It's also got a current events element that music doesn't have. So that's part of why our approach is to provide access and support and value-added services that support our users, our subscribers, from continuing to visit these sites rather than pulling it all into our own platform. Other companies have done that, which would be more like a Spotify subscription, and they've never really managed to get it working at scale because it doesn't work well for the publishers.
Alistair, it seems like you need to develop a reasonable amount of liquidity that is both people reading as well as publishers. So people reading can have a wide choice of publishers that they can hook into, and publishers can attract eyeballs from a large pool of readers who they may not already have in their stable. You know, building a double-sided market like that's really hard. How are you going to do it?
Absolutely, yes. I think this is the biggest challenge that we face as a startup. We are at a high level focusing consumer first. So we are talking. We've got some really interesting conversations going on with major publishers, and we're continuing to push that. But we recognize, you know, the sales cycles of these organizations are long, and we need to move fast. So what we're doing is we're focusing on building as quickly as we can, building really valuable services into our offering, that dashboard just being the very start of that enable us to get a critical mass of consumers that is compelling enough to switch publishers faster than we otherwise would be able to.
If you've got people who are, the dollars that are attributed to different sites are based on the percentage time that I spend on that site, and we know that clickbait is an attention suck, will it actually change the trend or just slow it?
Well, so it's designed, we actually started with it being based on number of articles read, and we purposefully changed it because that does reinforce the clickbait incentive. We do believe, and we've seen it in early data, that this model seems to work really well in terms of rewarding the publishers based on, you know, what, I mean, there's never a perfect, I don't think there'll ever be a perfect metric, but it does seem to be better. For example, we are seeing a much wider distribution of the split out we're sending to publishers based on this than if we were to do it based on clicks. And what I mean by that is the smaller publishers are getting a bigger cut than they would otherwise. And I think that, you know, that's because they're generally producing more detailed, long form, you know, investigative pieces rather than maybe the quick, punchy news that the bigger ones are doing.
Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you.
Just get one last round of applause for everyone and all the tech issues that everyone has to go through. Well, judges, I'm going to give you 10 minutes if you would like to reconvene. You can just go into that room to the side. I'm sure everyone knows where it is. And we'll get back to it.
I'm Jonathan Altman, president of the Global Entrepreneurship Network, trustee of Gen New Zealand. I'm very excited to be joining you for the Entrepreneurship World Cup New Zealand. EWC is more than a competition. Over the last few months, all 160,000 entrants from 198 countries have had access to EWC Accelerates, which is a learning and mentorship platform, and have also been given access to a range of other perks that to help jumpstart and boost those companies in need of the kind of support that we could contribute through Google Cloud, Stripe, or HubSpot, or other vendors. This pandemic that we're going through was tailor-made for a global response. Astoundingly, it never got one. It's funny, I look at national boundaries being porous to viruses, but they're also porous to innovation. So the Entrepreneurship World Cup comes at a time when it's especially important for all entrepreneurs in the global entrepreneurial ecosystem to rally together, to try to pivot for the pandemic, to provide leadership. Now, why do I see leadership? Leadership because entrepreneurs, unlike many in our society, are very comfortable with disruption, uncertainty, and the lack of predictability. And when we have a crisis like this, sometimes they can actually see opportunity more than they can see fear. And so I appeal to all entrepreneurs to take a leadership role at this great time of fear and uncertainty and struggle for many of our fellow citizens. It's you that will see the glass half full, that will see the opportunities in front of you and help us rebuild our economies, regenerate our jobs, and restore confidence of many of our citizens. I'm especially proud
me. I'm not doing anything.
unveiling today the manifesto. I could not be more honored to be working with Dave Moskovitz, Marwan, and all of our partners and teams and fellow board members and trustees in coming together in a process that was very much about listening. It was a process about determining what is the right path forward. It wasn't one that left people out. It wasn't one that focused on one actor over another. It's been a process to work out how can we work together, how can we build better together. And so I hope you'll take a look at this manifesto. I hope you'll be part of the work of Gen New Zealand going forward. And I hope that you'll very much join us in this effort to rally our nations, to rally our citizens, and to rally all of our ecosystem leaders towards figuring out better ways of doing things in a post-pandemic world. You know, many of you who know me have probably heard me say it before, but I can't think of a more fitting time to remind all entrepreneurs, and particularly all of you participating today in New Zealand, that you represent something much more important than simply a narrow commercial value. You represent the possibility of human endeavor for the benefit of all. Thank you.
I'm going to hand this over to Veronica to get us all underway with the most exciting part.
Hello, beaming from Wellington. My name is Veronica Stevenson. I had the honour of being a judge here tonight. So I'm going to go third, second, and then first. So in third place, we had RH. In second place, we had ProFlow. And in first place, we had Third Web. Thank you, everyone. There was a little bit of argy-bargy in the room, even if we were very quick about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. And for those who aren't aware, the top 3 winners also have entry into Creative HQ's incubation.
I think the first place gets entry into the
co-working, sorry.
Yes. Yeah, and the other 2 are, yes, welcome to use our co-working space. Yeah.
Which is lovely of them, and a big thanks to you guys for partnering with us too.
Pleasure.
Cool. Well, we won't hold you up too much on a Friday night. Big thanks to everyone who came along and stuck with us, and those who are online too. So, all in all, congratulations to the winners, and congratulations to everyone who entered as well. Thank you.